South Korea is the world's second largest semiconductor player by market value and a global leader in memory chips. Semiconductors are the country's biggest and most critical exports. We track South Korea's semiconductor journey and its complex relationship with Taiwan as they compete for the future of AI-driven chips. To understand how South Korea and Taiwan are squaring up in the high-stakes semiconductor supply chain, we are joined by Sung Soo Eric Kim. He's currently in Taipei as a visiting professor in AI strategy at the National Taiwan University. Tell us about what you're doing in Taiwan.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I came to Taiwan to learn Taiwan's spirit in the electronics market. Taiwan is a leader, global leader in the semiconductor and the electronics markets, which probably not many people knew a couple of years ago. But Taiwan is actually dominating the global supply chain. So I wanted to learn the Taiwanese secret of how Taiwan can do it. And also...
And your focus is AI strategy, I believe. Can you just give us a sense of what that looks like here?
So Taiwan is really good at manufacturing, but at the software application layer, I think Taiwan has a lot of room to improve. But I think that connecting the semiconductor ecosystem with AI will be a big synergy in the future. So I'd like to see Taiwan accelerate their AI initiatives based on the semiconductor technologies. But also, there should be a lot of global collaboration in the AI sector so that Taiwan can speed up the industry development.
When it comes to collaboration, we see a lot of collaboration with South Korea, in particular, at the moment, the semiconductor industry. Firstly, can you tell us or can you describe what South Korea's semiconductor industry looks like and the importance to its economy with regards to the chip sector and equipment related to that sector?
So semiconductor industry is very important in Korea. Recently, Korean stock market is rising rapidly, like it's a historical growth driven by the semiconductor, boom in the world right now. And it's mainly driven by Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix. Of course, Korea has a well-diversified industry portfolio, so it's not solely concentrated to semiconductor. But as a technological frontier of the industry, semiconductor industry is very important because it drives technological innovation and scientific innovation, and it also prepares the future of a lot of industries. So the semiconductor focus of Korea is very important. The difference between the Korean semiconductor industry and Taiwanese semiconductor industry comes from the product that we make. Taiwan is great in making foundry, led by TSMC. Korea is great in making memory chips, driven by Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix.
Okay, before we continue, I just want to have a look at or give us a view of where South Korea stands in the global market share. Let's take a look at how the semiconductor equipment and materials market is divided by country. Invest Korea, which is the East Asian country's national investment promotion agency, reported that in 2024, China captured nearly half the global semiconductor equipment market. South Korea was behind with around 17%, and Taiwan came in third with 14%. Now, when it comes to the semiconductor materials, Taiwan is by far the market leader with nearly a third of the global market share. China is 17% and closely followed by South Korea at 16%. Can we just get some context to those figures, starting with the China figures we're seeing, which includes the combined equipment investment, I believe, of Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix. Can you tell us how then in the relationship, particularly with South Korean companies in China, has been complicated by tariffs and the geopolitical landscape?
In that sense, Biden's administration started to require Taiwan, Korea, and Japan to decouple with China because the restriction was targeting China and it was restricting to export, semiconductor equipments or semiconductors to China. And that's when Korea, Taiwan, and Japan seriously thought about decoupling the industry structure with China and thinking about going more global, like in United States and Europe. That's what TSMC is doing. They have built a factory in Arizona, and also they are doing a project in Europe called ESMC. They already have a factory running in Japan called JSMC. Same for Korea. Samsung Electronics has been operating a factory in Austin, Texas, and they are currently building their 2 nano factory in Tyler, Texas right now, in accordance with the U.S. policy.
So there are 2 nanometers already?
Samsung Electronics is already manufacturing 2 nano right now. But after some cost of shifting their technological strategy, they have been applying GAA, Gate-All-Around technology, already in the 3 nanometer manufacturing process. But TSMC did not apply GAA technology yet in 3 nano. They stuck with, they continued to manufacture with their existing technology, which is more stable. But as a fast follower, Samsung made a courageous decision in applying a very advanced technology in the 3 nanometer race, which they couldn't show yield. So that's the reason why Samsung was losing against TSMC in the 3 nanometer battle. But now, both TSMC and Samsung Electronics have succeeded in applying the new technology in 2 nanometer race. So they are getting closer and closer in the technological catch-up.
So that is so interesting. So does that mean that there is a chance with this GAA technology that you mentioned, is there a chance for Samsung to leapfrog the advanced nodes that TSMC is producing, or it still remains to be seen?
Even though Samsung have succeeded in GAA technology, it doesn't mean that Samsung will immediately catch up with TSMC. We have to understand the 50 years of technological development of TSMC, which is the reason why TSMC is dominating the market share in foundry. They are having about 70% of the market share in the foundry business. Samsung Electronics is, I think, not really comparable in the foundry industry with TSMC. The gap is so large. But because Samsung Electronics is the only competitor, that's why TSMC and Samsung Electronics is being viewed as a rival in the foundry business. But we have to understand that there's a huge technological gap and also a operational excellency and a lot of know-how should be more accumulated for Samsung Electronics to catch up with TSMC.
Okay, very well explained. Now, you've talked about the development of chips in South Korea. You've been watching the semiconductor industry evolve. Started somewhat in the 1980s. Would you call that a little late in the game, or is that about right?
So we have to think about how the semiconductor industry came to Korea and Taiwan. Initially, Japan was manufacturing semiconductor technology, but because of the rivalry at that time between United States and Japan, U.S. gave the license to Korea and Taiwan. That's how the Korean market and Taiwanese market started to grow. But Korea and Taiwan has something in very common: government-led scientific and technological investment. That is really important for large-scale science, like semiconductor or any other science.
So as you mentioned, government policy played a huge part in Korea's semiconductor industry development, particularly with policy decisions from Park Chung-hee, which was from 70s,
Yeah, 60s,
and
70s,
Chun Do-hwan in the 1980s, shall we say? Which ones would you say? Were the most pivotal, and where do you think that they could have followed Taiwan's trajectory more?
So President Park initiated science development and industry development. So the chaebol structure the conglomerate structure started in President Park's period. And also we established the Korean Science Institute called the KIST, Korea Institute of Science and Technology in 1966. It was a government-led project, but the distinction is the budget is independent from the Congress. So it's a direct government-funded project, and that became the backbone of Korean scientific development. In parallel, we found the Korean Development Institute to build the economic planning. And at that time, Korea and Taiwan were close friends. So we shared a lot of ideas of how to develop each country. So the KIST model was benchmarked by ITRI. So KIST was founded in 1966. And then ITRI was founded in 1973.
Which many say incubated Taiwan's TSMC.
Yes, after 4 benchmark visits from Taiwan to Korea. So we shared the development logic. But there was a very big distinction between the Korean model and the Taiwanese model. In Korea, we invited bright Korean scientists from overseas, gave them housing, good compensation, to develop in scientific development within KIST. Taiwan also invited very bright Taiwanese scientists to Taiwan, giving them good housing, compensation. But once they developed technology, they encouraged them to spin off and found their own companies. You're looking at those companies right now that become the backbone of Taiwanese industry right now. So that's pivotal decision to focus on a government-led project or a more industry-led project. Totally, change the industry landscape of Korea and Taiwan.
So the Korean projects remained government-led, is that right?
Korean projects will be more vertical, I would say, like table system, right? Large company controls the ecosystem, the market. In Taiwan, small companies unite to shape the ecosystem. And those small companies all became large companies right now. So that's why Taiwan is having such a high economic growth right now. Yeah, so it's a totally different type of a approach coming from the same idea of government-led economic and scientific development projects.
And each with very different results from this looks of it.
Yeah.
So going back to Korea, they now dominate in DRAM and HBM. Taiwan leads in advanced nodes and foundry. So how would you describe the division of labor? And is there really a division of labor when it comes to AI, this AI era?
So right now, the division of labor is very clear. Nvidia launches a project on TSMC, makes the foundry, Korea supplies HBM, and then TSMC also do packaging. So it's very clear if division of labor in that sense, in the Nvidia-led world. And I think that this division of labor will continue for some time, unless one companies choose to get into the customer's market. For example, getting into chip design or becoming a brand themselves. And then it's a totally different story. But in the NVIDIA-led world, this is a very, very clear division of labor. And that's where Korea and Taiwan can also collaborate a lot because it's very clear which parts we take care about in this AI-led, AI-chip-led future and industry.
And as far as, I guess, to a certain extent, should it remain that way where it's very clearly divided, or should different countries be looking at trying to manage the ecosystem instead of saying Korea is going to do this part, Taiwan would do this part? Is there any overlap that you're seeing emerging?
Well, TSMC's policy is very laser focused. They want to become a foundry business, and they do not, as for today, they do not want to cross that border.
as an AI strategist, how do you see, I guess, how critical, I guess memory is the big question now at the moment, right? So how critical is Korea now in positioning? It's already the memory leader. How critical is its position right now as a memory leader with AI? Do you see that just getting stronger and stronger, or do you see it facing competition?
For now, Korea has a very, very strong position because TSMC has about 70% market share, more than 70% market share in foundry. But combining SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics, we have more than 70% of market share in HBM and DRAM industry. So we are the global almost monopoly in HBM, the most advanced HBM chips, which are essential for AI servers and any kind of AI development. You need GPUs and HBM, and Korea controls for HBM. So Korea has a very high position in the AI market right now in terms of the computing power. And for example, SK Hynix is showing 60% profit. Can you imagine? 60% profit. So this year we're expecting that everyone is going to have about $1 million bonus
Amazing.
at SK Hynix.
Currently with give us a bit of context, as an AI strategist and the discussion of the memory crunch at the moment, where memory is running out.
Right.
So how is Korea set to capitalize on that? Do they have the capacity to ramp up? And what would your advice be to Taiwan in that sense?
So the reason why SK Hynix is showing a 60% profit rate is because there's a global shortage in memory, HBM, right? So that's why the price is pretty high. And that's also the reason why the profit is so high right now. Of course, Korea is expanding capacity. We're building semiconductor clusters and building more factories. But we can't keep up with the global demand right now. That is the issue. So we see that this will continue at least for a couple of years because we also have the physical AI era coming, where you're going to see robots running around in our daily lives, and that all requires GPUs and HBM. So it's a good time for both Taiwan and Korea because you can't live without semiconductors right now.
Do you see anyone else filling that space from where you can see any other competitors, any other countries that can start helping with the supply crunch?
Of course, Intel and Micron, US semiconductor companies, want to take back the glory because I think this is really important. What Biden said during the Korea-US summit a couple of years ago. A reporter asked Biden, not really related to the Korea-US summit, she asked, is the CHIP Act targeting China? And Biden replied very, very clearly. He said, let me make this really clear. United States invented semiconductors, so we choose which country manufactures it. So that's the stance of the United States. They want to revive the semiconductor industry. And that's what Biden is doing and Trump is doing to revive the industry. And in a couple of years, they might catch up.
Okay, interesting. So talent is now becoming a new battleground. Korea faces acute shortage of semiconductor engineers. So does Taiwan, for that matter. How do you see this playing out over the next 5 years, particularly, as you said, AI is just going to get more demanding across industries?
I think we need more semiconductor engineers than AI scientists. Because AI scientists, that's not the specialty of Korea or Taiwan. The United States is better in that domain. It doesn't mean that we don't need AI talents. But as an industry focused, I think that we need more semiconductor talents because we're really short in semiconductor talents. Even if we combine all of the universities, graduates, is still going to show a significant shortage in talents and good talents as well. So we have to really focus on our educational policy on how to build more semiconductor-related majors and how to educate them. That is an immediate challenge that we're facing right now, I think.
So, as someone who is in the education industry, are you seeing, and often education isn't the first leading, in the sense it's industry is kind of leading what's needed, and then education is trying to catch up. Are you seeing the education or institutions trying to preempt that crunch we're going to face?
Right. For example, in Korea, we have contract majors. So, for example, SK Hynix would open a major, a semiconductor major in certain universities, and they guarantee that they're going to hire everyone from that major. So that's a good example of a industry-led university education. And in Japan is trying to revive the semiconductor industry. But the problem is they haven't been working on for semiconductor industry for so long, for about 40 years or 30 years. So there's no researchers that can actually boom up the semiconductor, demand right now. So Japan is closely collaborating with Taiwanese universities. TSMC is a good model. It's a industry collaboration, but also not only, industries collaborate, universities also collaborate to research exchange and research support. So those kind of a cross country and also cross industry and cross university collaboration is really important for cultivating this talent base.
Where do you see Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea fitting into this? And how much room is there for collaboration? Is it happening?
I think that's a really good question. During Biden's administration, we really emphasized Chip 4. US, Taiwan, Korea, Japan, the Chip 4 countries, the only countries in the world that are good at manufacturing semiconductors. So collaboration among these 4 countries were a top agenda of the United States. But during the Trump's administration, this Chip 4 concept is being a little bit diluted, I think. So you will see like US, Taiwan, Japan collaboration, US, Korea, Japan collaboration is a little bit decoupling, right? But I think that we still should have a unified global strategy on how to coordinate what we're good at, because we don't have time. We have to supply today. So the market is growing so fast. We don't have time to really compete and think about other things. Like supply is most important right now. So reviving the Chip 4 concept of Korea taking care of memory, Taiwan taking care of foundry, Japan taking care of chemicals and parts, the United States leading the design and demand is very important in my opinion for now.
And so as far as Taiwan and Korea go, do you see them just getting stronger in what they're doing, or where do you see them heading in the AI age, just to summarize what we've talked about?
So Korea and Japan had a lot of history, and we had a hard time getting together. Korea and Taiwan also have history, and sometimes it's hard to get together. But what really resulted was K-pop. The younger generation forgot about history, and the soft power really allowed Korea and Japan to bond together again as an economic partner. I think that's happening in Taiwan as well. So Korea and Taiwan is becoming more closer.
K-pop is definitely huge here.
Yes, closer friends with soft power. So that's the future that I see. If you don't have something in common, then it's really hard to collaborate. It's not, international collaboration doesn't just come with strategy. Like If you fit the puzzle, it's going to look good, so let's do it. It doesn't work in that way. You have to have humans, individuals, working in groups. Then how do we do that? We share values, and we become friends. But our future generation right now are very, very close friends among Korea, Taiwan, and Japan. So that's the possibility that I'm seeing among the scientific collaboration as well. So we will have to see more research collaboration and cross-border investments, and also maybe joint venture in some areas. We're currently so reluctant to mix economic blood right now because of the history. But the new generation probably can do it, I believe.